Hey, what's going on, you guys, and welcome to another video. This is actually a pretty interesting topic. It took me longer than I thought to put together the script for this video and thinking about the question of how do I take small steps towards big changes. And I started to reflect a little bit around like some of the things that I've gone through, and a lot of the people that are in my network today don't really know who I was in the past, whether it was drinking alcohol to excess on the weekends, doing drugs, not working out, let alone training for races, and essentially being a completely different human compared to who I am today. And it took me a couple of times of rewriting the script, writing the script, and like I have a bunch of pages here of hopefully what I can get through here in a short and concise video. So let's jump right in. So I asked a question in my Instagram story of like, okay, we have the topic, how do we take small steps towards big changes? But what example do we want to go through? And everybody voted that they wanted to talk about a nutrition journey. And the first thing that I'll always emphasize is that like it's really easy to get intimidated by a big picture, right? Like whether it's quitting smoking, quitting alcohol, starting a fitness or nutritional journey, moving across the country and starting a whole new life. It's totally a lot. I get it. And whenever I look at some of these big pictures, like some of the things that I went through a year ago when I told myself I'm going to build a personal training app, it was this huge vision, this huge ecosystem of like trying to meet people where we're at. And it was super overwhelming. I always ask myself, like, how do I break this down? How do I break this down into digestible milestones and build a plan around it to say by X date, we can execute against the plan and have a deliverable. But let's go back to the nutrition journey, right? Because that's the example for this video here. And so a nutritional journey can mean many different things to different people. And I always go back to like, what was the most impactful for me? And the biggest thing for my nutritional journey was to live a whole food lifestyle. So that meant removing processed foods, things that came into a package, sodas, artificial sweeteners and coffee, all of that stuff, getting that removed, and now embracing a nutritional lifestyle where a lot of my food is revolved around proteins, carbs, fruits, vegetables, stuff that grows in the ground, comes from the earth, all that fun jazz. I use the word lifestyle versus diet because I feel like dieting has such a negative connotation where like with keto, you can't eat this, with paleo, you can't eat that. And it's like, don't do this, don't do that. And I've learned to become more agile in this lifestyle. And we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end when we talk about like rewarding yourself and being able to understand what works best for you. But before jumping into like the what to do or how to do it, I always ask myself, like, why am I doing this? And if I revert back to when I started this, I mean, I think back to my mid to late 20s when I really started to think about this nutritional journey. I'm 35 today, so you can essentially say that this has been a 10-year journey to get to where I'm at today. But if I think back to that time, I think about like some of the stuff that I was eating, you know, like I would lean on fast food. McDonald's was my kryptonite. Processed food like Doritos, which I grew up on and absolutely still love from time to time. Those were the things that I ate the most at that time in my life. But it also did cause some issues. During that time, I was also in the beginning stages of my fitness journey. And I like to emphasize that like the fitness aspect came before the nutritional aspect. But what I started to realize is through the fitness journey was that if my nutrition wasn't at a place where it needed to be, that I would only get so far in my nutritional journey. Going from a completely sedentary party lifestyle to pushing it to training all the time, I simply wasn't fueling my body in the way that it needed to be fueled. So why is this important? Again, by only covering half of the picture, you know, only doing the fitness aspect of it and not the nutrition, I would only get so far in this new lifestyle that I wanted to embrace. And instead I had to look at the full picture versus one subset. So the first step to really identifying like, how do I take this first step into this big journey is to first understand what your why is. And again, this is different for everybody. I think of 3 different categories when it comes to like, why are you going down this nutritional journey? 1, it could be aesthetics. I just want to look good naked. That's okay. Number 2, longevity. I want to live forever and have a higher quality of life when I'm older. That's okay. Number 3, it could be performance-based, which is what I focus on around athletics, right? I love to compete. That's okay too. Or it could be a blend of all 3. I always tell folks, choose one because that is your anchor. And so after we understand what our why is, I always talk about like, okay, well, let's set a goal and then let's build a plan around that goal so then we can start to identify what those milestones are. And for me, being someone that works a corporate day job, but also trains in the evenings and races on the weekends, I wanted to focus on performance, right? I didn't want to just only perform in the gym or on the course, but I wanted to be fully optimized when I was at work so I was sharp and able to get my work done in an efficient manner versus having like a foggy brain or being hungover or just not being fully attentive. And so I then asked myself, okay, what are the factors that make up my nutritional journey? And I broke it up into 2 categories. I go hydration and food. And I forgot to mention this at the beginning. In my mid to late 20s, I was putting artificial creamer, sugar in my coffee, and I would drink soda almost every single day, which is crazy to think about now, given all the information that comes out around how much sugar is in there and how much that really impacts your body. All right, well, let's go back to the categories here, right? Hydration and food, and then we think to ourselves, ourselves, how do I take this big problem and develop small solutions over a long period of time? So if I were to go back to my mid to late 20s, I was eating fast food, processed food, drinking alcohol, I would start with hydration. The reason why is this is an easy win with making very, very small changes to your behaviors. And I would tell myself, for 1 month, I'm gonna remove sodas and the artificial sweeteners that I put in my coffee and simply stick to water and black coffee for 1 month. I'm not gonna change anything about food. We're simply gonna focus on hydration here. From a quantity standpoint, I wanna be drinking at least half of my body weight in ounces. At that time, I was roughly 170 pounds, and it's just crazy to think about that now. But if I were to start over, I would say I'd have to be drinking at least 85 ounces of water on a daily basis. So again, this is one small step towards a big change. But we always wanna make sure that we reward ourselves. And this is different for everyone, and no way is better than the other. I know myself well enough to know that I do like to have a treat at the end of each milestone. And so if I were to go back to this time and go 30 days with just water and black coffee, at the end of that 30 days, I would give myself a soda. It's definitely something that I earned, and I absolutely would like to reward myself. I would enjoy that soda and then go back to just completely removing it. And this is where the differentiator comes in for each person. There are some people that can have small little doses throughout the week or on a weekly basis. I simply am not that kind of person. I know myself with the addictive personality that I need to have a restricted time without it, give myself a little bit of treat and go right back to it. If I was doing, let's say, a quarter of a serving on a weekly basis, that I probably would not stick to just that quarter serving on Friday night. I'd probably end up drinking the whole thing. And again, this is different for everybody, and that's important for you to understand upfront when starting these types of journeys. But let's say you don't make it the 30 days. Let's say you break, you had some drinks, and then you ended up drinking a soda, put some artificial creamer in your coffee. That's okay. Acknowledge what you've done, take ownership, and learn from it and move on. If 30 days is too long for you, reduce that down to 50%. Let's see if we can make that 2 weeks. At the end of 2 weeks, we can give ourselves a treat, try to go another 2 weeks. If 2 weeks is too long, let's go for 1 week. It's understanding what time frame works best for you and just finding that consistency to build momentum. The hardest part in all of this is starting that consistency. You don't need to be perfect, but we do need to do something. And that's why I always say, acknowledge what you've done, take ownership, learn from it, and move on. There's this great Denzel Washington speech that he did at a graduation. I don't know where it was at, but he started it with saying, if you're not failing, you're not even trying. And I love this quote so much because we are going outside of our comfort zone. Like for me, growing up with Doritos, I remember as a kid, I would have my sandwich, my Doritos, an apple, and a Capri Sun. That was what I ate almost every single day for lunch, K through 12. And I totally get it. Breaking these habits is hard to do. And that's why I like doing these small changes over a long period of time versus going so hard on the paint on day one. Okay, so let's say that we've made it that 30 days, right? We hit it, we got water, black coffee, 30 days, first month out of the way. Awesome. Now we're ready to build upon this. I love this idea of momentum, and I've mentioned it in previous videos all the time on my social media that with consistency, you build momentum and momentum compound. Once you start to get into this rhythm, everything starts to become a lot easier for you to get to the next level. So if we think back to our two categories, hydration and food, we've now just taken out hydration. So we're ready to move on to food. And this is now month number 2. Now with food, I'm gonna keep things super simple. Let's just say we eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Keeping it simple for the purpose of this video. And when I think back to like my mid-late 20s, I would be eating the Starbucks breakfast sandwich, McDonald's at lunch because I was in a rush at work to get the food, come back, get back to work. And then my go-to for dinner was Chinese food. This was like what I always ordered and loved. I still love it, but obviously don't eat it anywhere near to the amount of frequency as I used to. So when thinking of food, instead of saying, I'm gonna remove all processed and fast food day one, everything I'm gonna eat is freshly cooked at home, ready to go. You could say, I'm gonna start with eating eggs and a banana for breakfast, and we're gonna start with breakfast. So we're starting with one of the 3 meals, and we're gonna focus on that for 1 month, just breakfast. So as we go into month 2, we continue with the hydration piece, the water and black coffee, and now we're just adding breakfast to the journey. Same process of what we were thinking about hydration. At the end of that second month, day 60, whatever it is, give yourself a treat. For me, I'm a big fried chicken and waffles guy. I love it. And I like to start with breakfast because it's the first meal of the day. Think about it like with working out. A lot of people dread it. If they have their workouts in the afternoon, they're thinking about it all day. I have to go to the gym. I have to get out. I want to do this. I have to do that. And it just like sits on their shoulder all day long versus like if you just got it out of the way in the morning, you're good. Same thing with breakfast here. Not only is it knocked out for the day, but it takes the thought out of it. You know exactly what you're going to eat, but you're also starting the day with quality nutrients. Now you might be thinking this right now, and I hear it all the time. Well, Omar, you got to live life. You only live once. You got to enjoy it while you're alive. And I 100% agree with you. And we will talk about that towards the end. So now that we've established hydration and breakfast, breakfast, we're now ready to dial it up and add one more to the table here. And we can follow the same flow throughout the day by now thinking about lunch. And this is done through meal planning and prepping. So from a planning perspective, every Sunday morning, I'll go on like social media channels that I follow to get some ideas around like what I want to eat. I try to do something different every single week, put that list together, and I make sure that I have that list before going to the grocery store. So I just get those ingredients right away. And on the prepping side, I'll do my meal prepping for the whole week, either Sunday night or Monday morning. Not only does this take the thought of what am I going to eat today for lunch, but it also helps save time of needing to go to a restaurant and back so you get to work on time, or having to cook every single day if you're one of those remote workers. And the key to success here is to make sure that every week we change it up so we don't get stale with the foods that we're eating. So once we get through lunch, we now then add dinner, same flow, right? Try to get some ideas of like what you want to eat, prep it ahead of time. For dinner, it's a little bit different, right? Because we're typically home for dinner. And what I'll do is I'll cook something on a Monday and have extra food and eat that on a Wednesday. I'll cook more food on a Tuesday and eat the leftovers on Thursday. So I'm really only doing 2 days of cooking, and I interchange the meals so I'm not eating the same one each dinner. And that will get me Monday through Thursday. We'll talk about Friday here towards the end. So in an ideal situation, we can embrace an entire whole food lifestyle within 4 months. This video is coming out here in September, and if you really think about this and kind of like plan it to start in September, by the time January 2024, you can be in a fully whole food journey and be ready to take on, maybe it's a fitness journey, maybe it's removing alcohol, maybe it's removing smoking, but you've got the nutrition piece down. And as I mentioned earlier, allow yourself to mess up, acknowledge what happened, take ownership, learn, and move on. But let's go back to the reward piece, because I feel like this is a topic that, quite honestly, I've received messages that were not so nice from folks around how I approach this. And this is like the perfect opportunity to finally address the situation around like cheat meals. So when I think about rewards, again, this is very different for different people. I know myself very well to acknowledge that I have a very addictive personality and that I have to go through periods without things, allow myself a small window, and go right back to that period without it. When it comes to food, I do have a weekly cheat meal. I eat whatever I want, as much as I want, and I do that once a week on Friday nights. Why do I do it on Friday nights? The reason why is because Saturdays are typically my longest sessions of the week. I do a run that goes anywhere between 2 to 3 hours, and then I follow that up with a 90-minute strength session in the afternoon. I'm doing doubles Monday through Thursday, so I typically walk into Friday with a nutrient deficiency. So by having my cheat meal on Friday night, I put a surplus of not only calories but nutrients into the system to not only bring me to baseline but be way above. And then that fuel will then be used for the Saturday sessions. And on Saturday, I go right back to my normal nutritional protocol. But this could be different for you, right? You could do a weekly cheat meal. You could do a nightly dessert if that's what you want. You can have your weekly drinks or wine, whatever it may be. And this will take time to understand what works best for you. And I feel like I've said this 100 times, but no one way is better than the other. So to recap like these small steps towards big changes, I think about this in 5 sections. We have identify your why. For me, it was around optimizing my performance. We create a goal. I want to be on a whole food lifestyle within 4 months. Number 3, a plan, right? We start with hydration month 1, and then we do 1 meal each month after that. Step 4 is around the execution, right? The planning of everything, being able to have an accountability partner, someone that's making sure that you're doing what you're going to say, sharing it on social media if you feel comfortable with it. I personally have found it very helpful when I do share my goals with my close friends, family, or on social media, because when it does come to these big changes, I get it. You sometimes feel like you're isolating yourself from the world, but if something is important enough to you, then I always say go for it. And then the 5th piece is to always reward yourself, because life is short and you do want to live it up. I typically get McDonald's as my weekly cheat meal because I do like McDonald's. I'm totally a sucker for the fries. So there you have it. There is my approach to taking small steps towards big changes and using a nutritional journey as the example. If you have any questions or concerns, be sure to leave them in the comment section below. I appreciate you watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.